There is a battle happening in your community. Towns and cities need to be economically vibrant to provide services and environmental aesthetics. And there is competition from other communities to attract business to invest in development to provide the ever-increasing required revenue. Your community, Chamber of Commerce, is on the front line promoting your community to be more advantageous to business and development than the next community.
Welcome to the Georgia Podcast, featuring the who's who and what's new in Georgia. Made possible in part by Global Podcast Studios, offering podcast studio rentals, production, and distribution. Visit globalpodcaststudios.com. And by our friends at Serendipity Labs, co-working, private offices, and more. True inspiration at work. Learn more at serendipitylabs.com. Now join Rich Casanova, broadcasting live from the Pro Business Channel studios in Atlanta and worldwide across the PBC syndicated networks.
Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Georgia Podcast. Rich Casanova here alongside Artie Ruderman. Our guest on the Georgia Podcast is Nancy Hoehn. She's the CEO and president of the Alpharetta Chamber of Commerce. Is here to share what the Alpharetta Chamber of Commerce is doing, and it is making one of the fastest growing cities in America.
Nancy, on a personal note before we start, so our listeners have an understanding of who you are and where you come from, before becoming the CEO and president of Alpharetta's Chamber, you were involved with several chambers in Orlando, Florida area.
Correct.
And you were also executive director in a CO position of a Toastmaster district director, and you led a team of 70 providing support and guidance to over 200 clubs and 4,000 members in Central and Northern Florida.
Correct.
That's impressive. You and I had a conversation off air about Toastmasters, which is a wonderful organization.
Right.
But please feel free to add to your bio if you want to add anything that I left out.
Yeah, sure. Actually, my experience in Toastmasters is what completely changed my career. My background is actually in accounting, both public and private. And when I got involved in Toastmasters and started serving in district leadership and the training and everything that they provide, along with getting over the fear of public speaking, I realized that I enjoyed really working with people, seeing people just change their lives because of the Toastmaster experience. And from there, that is how I gained the skills to actually be a leader in a Chamber of Commerce, because they're both membership-driven organizations. So they both have the same challenges and providing the same service to the members.
Well, as you and I spoke about off the air, Toastmasters not only teaches how to listen, how to speak, but also to be a leader.
Yes, actually. That is their tagline, where leaders are made.
Wow, I was a member of Toastmasters. I didn't know that was their tagline. Yeah, that's been a few years back, yeah.
Well, you're still a developing leader then.
Thank you.
I'm going to bring this back to the chamber. You know, most of us know something about our community chamber of commerce, but most of us do not think too much about why it is important to our business and to our quality of life. So I'm going to provide just a little bit of a history of chambers of commerce. The first Chamber of Commerce was founded in 1599 in Marseille, France. The first Chamber of Commerce in the United States was in New York in 1768. A Chamber of Commerce also refers to a board of trade. It's a business network whose goal it is to advance and promote the economic environment for business and general welfare of the community they serve. They're usually independent, sometimes quasi-government organizations that have influence on legislators by lobbying to have laws passed favorable to business.
So, Artie, you're saying there was a chamber before that we had a country established in 1776.
That's true, because
That's kind of odd, doesn't it seem like we had a Chamber of Commerce before we had a country?
Yes, and actually my research showed that in England in the same year, there was a chamber that started, and that was the first English-speaking Chamber of Commerce in New York and in England at the same time.
This guy's done his homework on this, yeah.
Yes, he has.
All right, so Nancy, we've been talking about the Chamber of Commerce. Talk to us about a brief history of the city of Alpharetta and their backstory.
So the city of Alpharetta started experiencing unusual growth about the 2006. They had about 3,000 to 6,000 residents. It actually started growing. Businesses started being attracted to this area. And within like about a 5-year period, there became over 5,000 businesses.
Wow.
We have, right now we're at about 66,000 residents. And we have actually about 60,000 people that travel into Alpharetta every day. So our population doubles each day. And with that, about that time is when some business leaders in Alpharetta decided that it was a good time to start a chamber specifically for this business community. And they knew that Alpharetta could sustain its own chamber. And so at that point, it was developed. It was run by the board of directors and some volunteers for the first 4 years. And then in the 5th year, they did the search for the CEO to bring in an experienced chamber professional and be able to actually lead the chamber and take it to the next level so that we can continue to serve and provide resources for the community.
And they found the perfect candidate for that, apparently, right? Yes or yes? Yeah.
Well, maybe that, and I found my perfect job too. I was looking for something exactly like this, a young chamber in a very vibrant and growing area to be able to come in and really make a difference. And I did some consulting work for a chamber in Orlando, which is very similar in the Lake Nona area, which kind of had the same type of history as Alpharetta, where it was a country club community for a very long time, kind of out in the boonies, not much around it. But the developer had a vision for that area, and they grew quite large, and they started their own chamber outside of the regional chamber there.
Talk to us about some of the claims to fame. So Money Magazine recently said what about Alpharetta?
So Money Magazine did research, and they named throughout the United States the #1 city to live in each state. And in Georgia, the city was Alpharetta.
That's crazy. And then Southern Living Magazine followed up with that with what kind of stat we're talking here?
Yes, with the 16th. We were number 16 as voted the friendliest city. Yeah. And that's what I've experienced, too, since I've been here. It's very different from Florida.
So you guys add another level to the Southern charm or whatever, right? I mean, who wouldn't want to live in the friendliest town in the South? But now let's pivot where we're on the Pro Business Channel, our middle name being business. So talk to us about technology and Alpharetta.
So Alpharetta, back when Windward was first developed, Ross Perot had a vision of Alpharetta attracting the tech community, and he worked to get the huge fiber optic network built and constructed. And with that, that's what started attracting businesses because they could get up and running. They had fast download speeds, and they had that whole the fiber optic network as well as the large database.
And speaking of business, our stats, our intel says there's 20 million square feet of office space just in Alpharetta.
Yes.
I don't think the average
available.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I don't know that the average Metro Atlanta or Georgian really thinks in that has that mindset, right?
Well, and the fact that we have over 6,000 businesses, and of those, over 700 are high-tech companies. You don't really think about that, seeing the small town charm and the friendly and all of that here in Alpharetta, you just don't see.
Well, that's an amazing backdrop on the city of Alpharetta. Now talk to us about the connection with the Chamber of Commerce and helping the city of Alpharetta be successful. Talk to us about some, cross-pollination there.
So with the Chamber working with the City of Alpharetta as well as our Convention and Visitors Bureau, we all kind of work as a team to help the city be a destination for many different things, a destination for business, a destination for residents, and a destination for weddings and family reunions and things like that. So the CBB does a very good job of attracting that type of business into Alpharetta as well. And then once the businesses are here, it is our job to support them, build a network of businesses that support each other and help each other be successful, and then that creates a sustainable business community.
So this is your 6th year. You talk about the network. So how many members are we talking as part of the Alpharetta Chamber of Commerce?
We are almost at 400 members in the chamber.
With 6,000 companies, it sounds like you have
We have an untapped, yes.
There's a sales
Literally
position open now.
Which leads me to my next question, which would be, what would you tell the ones who are not members are the benefits for joining the Chamber of Commerce of Alpharetta?
Well, the Chamber of Commerce, one of the things that we do is provide networking opportunities. And I'd always try to stress that with all of the social media and a lot of digital marketing, that still face-to-face networking, if you use that in conjunction with social media, it's like exponentially 10 times better than just either social media or face-to-face networking. Still, people do business with people that they know, like, and trust, and that's how we build that community of businesses. On the other side of it, a lot of businesses have that corporate social responsibility policy, and they want to do good in their community. They want to give back. They want opportunities for their employees to volunteer for nonprofits or even the chamber. So that helps larger companies kind of serve that corporate social responsibility factor in their business. And sometimes they just want to be financial supporting partners of our organization because they know we're doing good,
right.
They know we're creating a sustainable business community, and then they help us financially also with either sponsorship or membership opportunities.
Just really supporting your mission, right?
Exactly.
And it's interesting. We did the flip on the social media and in person. So we met you in person here in Serendipity at a networking event, and then we just connected this week on social media. Yeah.
So see how great that all works
I know, right?
together?
Absolutely.
But that is a point. Being a serial networker or net weaver myself,
Yes.
It is very important to have an online presence.
Yes.
But to connect that to one-on-one is very powerful. And it's sort of like you already preset it because now you have some brand recognition online, and now you connect personally.
Right,
So it
right.
builds that familiarity, if you will, and that trust that you spoke about earlier. So in a very real sense, a Chamber of Commerce stands at the junction for government, business, and residents' interest. The Chamber serves the interest of the business and the community. However, it must strive to balance the best interest for both. And what might be good for one is not necessarily good for the other. So how does the Chamber balance that?
Balance.
The interest of business and residents. They might be in conflict at some time. What's good for one might not necessarily be good for the other.
Well, and with the Chamber of Commerce, too, the Chamber is not always a good fit for every business. It's not always, and our Chamber may not be specifically the best fit for any business. So there's a saying in the Chamber world that once you've seen one Chamber, you've seen one Chamber, because we're all so different, because we serve the areas where we're located and what our businesses need and what our community needs. With the residents, and one of the challenges that we have is getting the word out to our residents that whenever they're looking to do business, they're looking for a hairstylist, they're looking for somebody to fix their air conditioning, they're looking to sell their home. If they go to our website, which is alpharettachamber.com, and go to our directory of businesses, and then there they can find businesses that are reputable and dependable. And there was a study done specifically for chambers of commerce that shows that about 67% of people find businesses who are members of a chamber to be much more desirable, and they're more likely to return business with them. It was called the Shapiro survey.
No, I would buy into that. That totally makes sense. So talking about this partnership or alignment, someone tells me you have a story about an event signage to share with us, right?
Yes. Well, Alpharetta being such a unique and charming community, when I first got here, and this was very different for me coming from Orlando because we didn't have these issues, but when I started talking to the members and learning what some of their challenges are, one of the biggest comments that I got, or one of the biggest issues that businesses have, is the fact that the signage is very restricted here in Alpharetta.
Limited, yeah.
But that keeps it charming,
right,
too.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand the city's point with doing that, but it still is a challenge for our businesses. So one of the initiatives that I think our chamber is trying to assist with is finding and coming up with different ways that we can help market our businesses and give them visibility without the signage. So we need to be able to drive business to our members and get people to know they're there.
Yeah, easy for the consumer to navigate throughout the city and utilize the services. I remember the first time I went to Hilton Head, South Carolina, and all this, it was very subdued. I think somewhere in your psyche you realized you weren't in this chaos of the typical city, right? You had that island experience, and yet when you looked around, all the signage was uniform.
Yeah,
right? It was all the same color coding, but you knew that this business was existing there. It wasn't like a best kept secret.
Right.
Have you guys explored those options or the scenario?
Well, that's pretty much how the restrictions are. They do limit the height and different things, but they're not necessarily all consistent as far as the you can have
chromatic
your logo
or whatever,
and that type of thing. But I feel, and again, you don't see any billboards in Alpharetta either. So that's another thing that just helps keep it from looking like such a large
it keeps it friendly
community.
Or whatever, instead of like Austin, they want to keep it weird or whatever.
In our off-the-air conversation, you gave a great example of how the chamber works for business and also is in working with the residents. So you were talking about an event that was an Alpharetta downtown event, and the signage restrictions kind of didn't help the crowds find what they were looking for.
Hampered the experience?
Right.
Yeah, a better term. So what did the chamber come up with, an idea for that?
Well, when the city center area of downtown opened, and we are getting ready to now be one downtown with everything involved, as these businesses were starting to open and as we grow business in the downtown area, we're seeing that with the restrictions, businesses can't have grand opening signs and things like that. So our chamber created a Sip, Shop, and Stroll event.
I like that. Sip, what was that again?
Sip, Shop, and Stroll.
All right.
I know it's a challenge to say it sometimes.
Especially if you've been sipping it. Yeah.
And we actually have it coming up this Thursday from 5 to 8:30. We did our first one right before the holidays last year. And so it drives traffic down and into the businesses. And then they can have an opportunity to provide some food and beverage, get the community into their location. They know they're there. They can see what they have. And then it creates that return business as well.
But you had told me that you came up with an idea of temporary signage, and that's something that the chamber does. It comes up with, if you will, ideas and concepts that they lobby to the legislators to be more helpful.
Yeah, we haven't actually gone to the city with anything. We would like to be able to possibly at some point have the city loosen up the restrictions and be able to provide some maybe temporary signage or special event signage with it only being able to be up a certain amount of time.
Yeah, like for pop-up events or festivals or conferences.
But until we get to that point, we have to find ways that we can work around that.
So as we say in radio, stay tuned, for that one, right?
Stay tuned.
So let's pivot here for a second. So not every city has an economic development director, but Alpharetta apparently does, right?
Yes.
So talk to us about, those goals and the alignment again with the chamber and the economic development director.
So the Economic Development Department at the City of Alpharetta is responsible for driving business growth into Alpharetta, and they work very closely with us. We help provide if there's any issues or anything like that with businesses. So between the Greater North Fulton Chamber, which is also located right here in Alpharetta, and our chamber, we both work with the Economic Development Department to support and sustain those businesses.
I think your term for that was the city brings them in and the chamber
inspires
serves and
them.
Sustains and inspires and educates.
I'd say keeps them in, keeps them coming back, for those annual renewals,
Well, coming at it from a business angle, the chambers are businesses, and you're competing against other chambers for investments. What is Alpharetta's value proposition?
Well, basically, we are able to do much more than a regional chamber as far as to be very close and intimate with our members so that we can really speak to what they're looking for, just like the signage issue, providing some education and resources specifically to what they're looking for. And with the Greater North Fulton Chamber, they provide the government advocacy. They have 6 cities that they serve, which is one of them being Alpharetta, Sandy Springs, Roswell, as well, Johns Creek. So, and then Sandy Springs and Johns Creek have their own chamber. So we all work together in the same North Fulton community to be able to serve the businesses in whatever way they need. So some businesses, if they're looking for more of a global or regional reach, then our chamber would not be the best fit for them unless they're looking for that corporate social responsibility type aspect. And then we can definitely provide that for them.
So if they are looking for Alpharetta, what would you say are the strong points?
That we have great opportunities as far as being able to get exposure and visibility through events, sponsorships. We provide resources through our monthly luncheons. We just brought in a Google consultant that gave some great takeaways from the event that people were actually able to go back to their office and put into play and use and help grow their business on Google. And so we look for any opportunities that we can to be able to get information to our businesses. We have our Coffee and Commerce, which is a hot topic. It's held quarterly, and we just had Kathy Hypes and Kathy Ziegert come in and talk about what's happening with the North Point renovation. So we always try to keep our businesses in Alpharetta informed and educated and inspired and then connected.
For our listeners outside the Alpharetta or the general Metro Atlanta area, North Point Mall is currently going under renovation,
yes.
and the direction it's going is to be more
walkable,
mm-hmm.
live, work, play. There's going to be some multifamily housing there. It's going to have a lot of green space. It's going to be connected to all of the trails, so you'll really be able to get through pretty much Alpharetta, Avalon, downtown, and North Point will all be connected throughout the city.
That is a wide area and very impressive that they're accomplishing that. So given you have the value proposition and you know that you're trying to win businesses to come here, to Alpharetta, I should say, what are the challenges that you come across typically?
Of course, there's always the challenge of just getting people to understand what we do and why we do it, that we're here for them, and how we have so many services outside of attending events. I think probably the first thing that comes to mind when people are looking at joining a chamber is, I'm a new business, I'm slammed, I don't have the time, I don't have time to get out and go to events. But that's one of the things that we bring value with is that we have a lot of opportunities outside of events to promote our businesses and give them visibility.
So what specifically needs to be done to make the chamber grow? What would you say? Now, I'm talking about the chamber now, not bringing in businesses to the chamber.
Right, to make the chamber grow. So we are starting to grow and become strong financially, and having more corporate business support would be beneficial for us right now. We're trying to develop an Alpharetta Council of Executives, which will hopefully get more of the larger corporations involved so that we can have a round table with the mayor and some of the CEOs of the larger businesses that have a large footprint here in Alpharetta.
That's interesting because in most chambers, typically the large corporations will join the chamber. They would support it financially, but they really do not get actively involved.
Right. Many times they don't.
And
we're trying to work toward that so that we can learn what issues they're seeing, maybe some of their employees, whatever level, but with the larger businesses, having that input and how can the chamber help with any issues within the city or within their business.
All right, just want to remind our listeners you're listening to the Georgia Podcast, where we're telling the stories of who's who and what's new in Georgia. And this is Rich Casanova alongside Artie Ruderman, and we're speaking today with Nancy Hoehn. She's the president and CEO of the Alpharetta Chamber of Commerce. Just beforehand, you mentioned about the CEO Roundtable, this new initiative, I guess, in the works. And earlier you also mentioned about there's not necessarily a global opportunity or outreach, but actually speak to us about this technology of the South. I mean, it's actually home to more than 700 technology-based corporations, right? So it's not this sleepy southern town or whatever.
No.
Right? Yeah.
No, many of our companies here in Alpharetta do have a global outreach.
Yeah. Okay.
So at that point, that's where the larger organizations can be part of us it's not necessarily that we're going to provide more business
Right.
for them, which is a lot of times what people may allude to. But no, they are providing information to us to help us be the best resources for the businesses in Alpharetta.
Absolutely. So let's talk about kind of what's next, right? So we covered a lot of ground here today. I think this is a great infomercial for the Alpharetta Chamber of Commerce. Yes or yes?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
So what's its growth focus? I mean, Artie was kind of touching on that a minute ago, but you mentioned the board of directors, you're working on the next, new initiatives. Is there any scoops or anything you have cooking here? Or,
Well, we're going in, we just started our 6th year. Our board had their strategic planning meeting, and we are definitely looking at what ways we can develop working with educational institutions, getting better connected in the technology world, as well as finding out what's most important to our businesses and then delivering that going into the next 5 years.
Awesome. I love this last question. We'll try to finish on unless there's any follow-up roundtable discussion and so forth. But so crystal ball, if the chamber had a larger budget, maybe a blank check, you're pitching to the Shark Tank and they got lots of money in their pocket, right? So what would you do in an ideal world?
Well, in the ideal world, with more capital and more funding, we definitely need to increase our staff to be able to provide all of those resources. So we recently in November moved into our own office space. So we
Nice.
have great space right now to be able to serve and have resources for our businesses. We're going to have a co-working space that will house about 4 people.
Nice.
We have a conference room our members can use. And then, but as the funding increases
Right.
and our financial situation gets much more solid, then we'll be bringing in more staff. And that way we can start developing better programs and more educational resources as well.
How many people do you have on staff right now?
Right now we have 2.
Okay. So
Wow.
let's do a shout out to the other person. Yeah. Who would that be? That's easy math. Whatever. Yeah. I don't want to put you on the spot if there's 17. Now I got to remember all 17 names. Yeah.
No, that is Tina Blount, and she is our communications and marketing director.
Okay.
So she does all of our social media communications. She helps with events. So her and I both have to wear several hats.
Absolutely.
We have our main responsibilities, but then we also do a little bit of other things just to get everything. But to get everything up and running and to be strong, we just had to jump in with both feet, and we're making it happen.
So like with, Artie hosts a show actually here on the Pro Business Channel, Business Developers Network. Every business understands that the lifeblood is sales and generating more membership and, so in your case, more members, right? So what are some of the challenges and opportunities? And I guess with that budget, you would bring on some more people in business development to enhance the size of the organization?
Enhance the size of the organization as well as programs and education, events. And so right now our calendar of events is pretty solid.
Okay.
And we've brought on new events in 2018. We just started a couple new ones here in 2019, and that will be pretty solid. It's the programs and education, more workshops, that type of thing.
Give us some outline of some of those events or some of your signature events as well.
So our signature events consist of our Women Who Walk the Walk, which we just had last week, which is an inspirational, motivational type event. We usually get a woman, businesswoman in Georgia who has been very successful. She's gone from like nurse to CEO type thing. And they come in and they tell their journey and talk about their story and how they did that, the challenges, and that type of thing. We have our Coffee and Commerce, which I mentioned earlier, is a hot topic type of event.
Is that a weekly, monthly, or
That's quarterly.
Quarterly, okay. What about weekly or monthly events?
Weekly, right now we just started a mastermind group, which will start meeting weekly in May.
Nice.
And we have our Wind Up Wednesday, which is our business after hours. We have
wine, like wind up?
Wind up, like re-energize your business.
With the one little wine in your glass? No.
Not complaining,
It's a little
not whining.
Sign me up for that one. Yeah.
It's a little play on words.
Yeah, I used to host an event. I think Artie was motioning towards. It was networking and wine tasting.
Oh, okay.
I call it net whining.
Not whining.
Maybe we'll talk about rebooting that or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. I like that.
So, Oh, go ahead.
And we have our network with our rock stars, which actually one of our members hosts the event at their location.
Okay.
So it gives people a chance to learn where they are, what they're about, see their venue.
Cool.
And then we give the opportunity to a home-based business or maybe a business that does not have a brick and mortar to be the vendor there. So it brings some visibility and gives them the chance to meet some new people.
So they get kind of their virtual ribbon cutting at an event like that, right? To announce them and their services, I guess, right?
It gives them visibility to market themselves. Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. So finish on this is being that you don't have a sales director in place, but in addition to that, what are some of the staff members, maybe a shout out that you're looking to interview or bring on board? Who would be on your short list as far as types of positions?
Well, actually, so with the sales of the chamber, one of my philosophies is really that you can't sell chamber membership.
Okay.
And so it's very relational versus transactional.
Okay.
So the more that we can get people to our events, get people to connecting and talking, and then they see the value of the chamber. And so so getting the communication out and getting people to our events is more successful in this type of chamber than it is going out and hard selling chamber membership.
Yeah, so it's more experiential
it's more
rather than
community
knocking on
development.
doors. And also probably I imagine you have some committee members that volunteer in the
Absolutely.
membership drives and so forth.
Yeah, shout out definitely to our ambassador team. That's our awesome Alpharetta ambassadors. And they are members of the chamber that volunteer their time to onboard new members and make sure that new members are getting the best. They bring out a gift to them, make an appointment, sit down and talk with them about what events might be best, things like that. So they are an amazing team, and we have a team of about 11 or 12 right now.
That's awesome. Artie, any finishing thoughts here? We're almost out of time. Or Nancy?
Well, I think we covered a lot. I learned a lot. So I think we can give Nancy a moment here to how would anyone contact if they're interested?
Yeah, call to action.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely. Our website has everything available there. It's alpharettachamber.com, so it's very easy.
Well said. We're closing this episode of the Georgia Podcast, coming to a close here. Once again, the Georgia Podcast with Rich Casanova here alongside Artie Runeman. And our guest today was Nancy Hoehn. She's the president and CEO of the Alpharetta Chamber of Commerce. And remember, if you want to be on the show, reach out to us. It's the Who's Who and What's New in Georgia.
On behalf of the Pro Business Channel, we thank you for listening to the Georgia Podcast, featuring the Who's Who and What's New in Georgia. Made possible in part by Global Podcast Studios, offering podcast studio rentals, production, and distribution. Visit globalpodcaststudios.com. And by our friends at Serendipity Labs, co-working, private offices, and more. True inspiration at work. Learn more at serendipitylabs.com. Join Rich Casanova for the next Georgia Podcast and download on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and more.